And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Razorburn podcast. My name is Jack. For anyone that doesn't know me, to be honest, you probably don't, but in in summary, I work for Carve Shaving Co. out of Canada. Yes, I'm English and I'm not Canadian. I work from the US. I do their customer service and their business development. And before that, I posted wet shaving videos and put them on the internet, specifically YouTube, at the Virtual Groom Room. My second host probably has a more interesting story than myself, and that is Heather. Heather, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Heather Melton. I am the owner of Zingari Man. I'm not sure how many more of you know me, but I do all the formulation and all the production at Zingari Man. So hopefully there are a few of you who have, tried the products or, have heard of me. So we'll see.
Okay, so I think it's important for me to get like some sort of mission statement for you guys to understand what we're trying to achieve with this. Ultimately, we want it to be informative and educational because we are approaching this from a slightly different viewpoint. We are two artisans in the industry. We see consistently what it's like to run or at least perform within a shaving environment or shaving business. We hope to shed some light on that for you guys to understand kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis to make things happen. And ultimately, we want to be entertaining. Um, kind of a couple of months back now, I was in a live with Heather, and as soon as I finished that live, I thought, okay, I was thinking about a podcast for a while, but I think I may have found the perfect person to do a podcast with. And yeah, that has come to fruition, known as the Razorburn podcast. We have a fantastic array of guests lined up for all of you. Yeah, and we look forward to bringing that to you. So, is there anything you want to add there, Heather, for what we're trying to achieve here?
Yes. So one of, the things that I definitely want to bring to the table, and I'm hoping that we can explore just because it's not really addressed is as a artisan, we both see the sides of like the struggles and the problems and things like that we face with various things. Most of us are like not business people, we're learning hands
Yes.
on as we go. So there's a lot of struggles. And I've talked with so many artisans over the past year, and I know 100%, no matter the size of the company, this is a problem. We have all faced different problems and we've all approached them different. So I want to hear like the real talk, and I want to kind of like, I'm hoping to get like the candid and frank discussions from other artisans that maybe they've not done before with other interviews and things like that. I also am hoping to bring some of the science to the table and kind of do some of the explanation and education, and hopefully you guys can learn
And
something.
I think it's important for people to kind of understand those trials and tribulations. Like all the public sees is the outward facing side of the company. They don't
Yeah,
quite know the 80-hour weeks that are involved to put out that product they
right.
see. And we hope to shed some light on how this industry actually works in that regard. So let's get on with it. The plan of these podcasts are going to be two topics of our choosing, and then the third topic is going to be chosen by you, which we're going to be calling the wildcard topic. Now, there are some stipulations to this. No politics, no religion, specifically wet shaving topics or skincare, cosmetic topics. Really don't mind. You can choose whatever you want. The way we're going to pick it is anything that picks our fancy through anyone, and you will be given credit when we kind of introduce the wildcard topic on any of the episodes. Yeah, let's start with the controversial topic that a lot of people may think. So I have been wet shaving for about 2 years, I would say, maybe a bit longer than that. And when I was first introduced to the hobby, I immediately realized there was a bit of stigma between a tallow-based soap, which is for anyone that doesn't know. I assume you know, otherwise you probably wouldn't be watching this. But it's a soap with animal byproduct, tallow, or vegan, which is a soap without any of those things. Now, there are loads of views, there are loads of opinions based on which one is better. We hope to shed some light based on my consumer perspective, but we have a soap making aficionado here to give us some more of the detail on how these different formulas are actually made and why these perceived differences may or may not actually exist. So, if I was to ask you, Heather, tallow a vegan, what would you pick?
I would say what brand first
Good
off,
point.
because that's the main question. Yeah. Honestly, the majority of it comes down to the formula and the maker and how they ultimately profile it. Um, for those of you who aren't familiar with like soap making, the what makes a soap the way it is it comes down 100% to the fatty acid profile. And so that fatty acid profile, like we try to fit these numbers into these categories to hit the qualities of the soap that we want. And so it really doesn't matter what ingredients you throw in it if those fatty acids aren't kind of balanced. So that's kind of what it comes down to. But the perception definitely is tallow is better. So I guess we'll see.
So when I think of fantastic tallow bases, I think of Holy Cow. I think of Declaration Grooming. I think of the Excelsior by Barrister and Man. There
Hmm.
are a few things they all have in common, and obviously Sego. How dare I not mention Sego?
Yeah, how dare you?
There are a few things they have in common, and I think the way you would describe that are they all have lots and lots of fat. And what do you think is the difference between having lots of fat versus very little? What does that do to the formulation of the soap?
Well, what is perceived as lots of fat for you is probably what we call super
Yeah,
fat. And if you're not familiar with that term, then what it is like you have a quantity of oil that requires a quantity of lye to make that oil into soap. And that process is called saponification. And so, superfat is basically extra oils over that reaction that are needed for the soap making process. So you actually have like free oils and fats left in the soap. That is very common unless you're making like a cleaning soap for like detergents or laundry detergents. You're going to want some extra super fats. Um, but what you use as a super fat and your formula itself is going to vary on what oils are left as the super fat. Um, and there are several things that kind of contribute to that. So we can definitely dive into some of the science if you want.
give it to me.
That's up to you. Okay. So a general breakdown of soap is basically we take we want to hit certain numbers on the fatty acid profile, and every oil and butter has a different profile. So quick example, um, to give you an example of what each one of the fatty acids brings, this is a quick lowdown. Oleic oil is going to be conditioning. Palmitic is what's going to give us the creamy, stable lather. Stearic is going to give us stable lather, but it really doesn't give us any like conditioning or softening or anything like that, or glycerin, which is a important byproduct of soap making. Also, lauric acid, and that is going to give you the big fluffy lather, but it's also drying. And that's when you're going to start getting like the skin tightening and things like that that nobody likes.
No.
Yeah, no, then that's not that's like the complete opposite of what we want in a really good soap.
Yeah.
So those are things to keep in mind. You kind of want to balance, and there's a couple other fatty acids that we look at, but those are kind of like some of the main ones. And so we have different numbers, and everybody has their own number that they want to kind of hit. So you basically are using a variety of oils and butters and stearic acid and things like that to hit these numbers that you want. So you're constantly playing with like the ratios to kind of get those numbers in that profile that you want. As an example, a quick difference in some of the ingredients. So tallow has 43% oleic, it has 22% palmitic, and it has 22% stearic. Another example would be kokum butter. It is 39% oleic, 56% stearic, and 2% palmitic. But if you look at coconut, you're going to see a drastic difference. There is 5% oleic, so there's like no conditioning hardly at all. It's very small. 48% lauric and 8% palmitic. So one of the big differences that you're going to see in that is the oleic, the stearic, and the lauric. The coconut oil is super high in lauric acid and it makes it super cleansing and super drying eventually on the skin. That's really not what you're looking for when you're looking for a quality like post
So what
shave.
you're saying basically, if you have a soap that has kind of like coconut oil really high up on the ingredients, there is a chance that unless they've offsetted that in some way, that could be somewhat drying to your skin.
Extremely, yes. And coconut oil is going to give you that big, fluffy, voluminous
Yeah,
lather that you've seen some pictures of. It's like cloudy and like super
with
puffy.
no density,
Um,
like no density at all.
no density.
Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. And for a bath soap, maybe that's
yeah,
okay. But like if you're shaving with it, it's not going to give you any protection if it's big and fluffy,
pretty much.
basically. Uh, yeah, so that is definitely something that, most people try to avoid. And I think a lot of consumers are catching on to that and they're realizing that the high coconut oil soaps really typically are not what they want or what they enjoy, especially if they have drier, sensitive skin. One thing that I've learned is that people who have oily skin definitely have a bigger tolerance as far as like what their skin can handle, what is comfortable for them, and what gives them a post shave that they
Yeah,
care about.
yeah, exactly. I definitely fall into that. I have pretty damn oily skin. In terms of things that, to be honest, I've never noticed a soap mess up the only way I can really describe it is my skin chemistry. Like I've never used a soap
Mhm.
consistently that I've thought this is bad for my skin. Like I probably should stop using it. But like you said, I imagine if someone is consistently using a soap and they have dry skin, they might notice that it's not giving them the benefits they require. If you look at kind of like
Mhm.
a vegan formula, for example, now going back to that super fats discussion, how would a vegan formulator get super fats as opposed to, because what as far as I'm understand, there's a lot more freedom when you're producing a tallow formula because you can kind of put whatever you want in it. But when you're making a vegan formula, how do you get that same or similar result as you would to a tallow formula?
Yeah, so with the vegan, one of the biggest things that you have to really consider is you have a lot more restriction on what you can use and the freedom to add different additives to it. Traditional soap making back in the day before it became like an artisan thing, like when everybody's grandma made
Yeah,
soap at home because they had to, they kind of used what was around. So they used a lot of things off from the farm. So they used a lot of milks, they used some honey, they used
lanolin.
beeswax, um, yeah, lanolin, things like that. So a lot of these traditional additives kind of started because that's what was available like readily.
It's interesting.
Um,
I've never thought about it
and
like that.
yeah, that's really, I mean, if you look at some of the like super old soaps and like traditional soap making, like even for bath soaps, not like shave soaps in general, just
Yeah.
soaps, people are using what was around, and that's how you ended up with tallow soap. People didn't have plant oils then, they had tallow.
Well, I mean, look at Mitchell's Warfare. Kind of what's in that. It's
Hmm.
pretty old, as far as I'm aware. Much older than myself. uh, yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. So you think a lot of
Hmm.
these I guess vegan soaps, how far have they moved forward since those times to where they are now? I mean, you have those. I'd say you have like a top tier vegan formula. I think you have a very good vegan soap. HSSC has a very good vegan soap. Ho-
Yeah, Highland's
Holy
awesome.
Cow has a fantastic vegan soap. Holy Cow, Holy Cow, however you want to pronounce it. Do what you like.
We'll find
Yep,
out.
we will find out. In fact, grooming department has some very good vegan formulas. Of course, they've moved forward in some way. If
Uh-huh.
you were to try and make a vegan soap as good as a tallow soap, what sort of things should I, as the consumer, be looking for?
Well, they definitely have to work on balance a little bit more. And again, they have different, they're more limited. So today's artisans versus like traditional, um, soap makers definitely have a bigger variety of products that we can try. I mean, it's an international world right now. I mean, we have access to things worldwide to where, you know, 50 years ago they didn't really have 50, 60, 70 years ago. They didn't have as much readily access to some of these ingredients that we have. Coconut oil, for example, it just wasn't around like it
No.
is now. Coconut oil is like the shit now. It's
Yeah, it is. It's on
everywhere.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, like it's the cure all for everything. So, you can super fat with anything. The difference is going to be if you take 100% coconut oil and add 50% extra fat to it and do a 50% super fat, it's still being super fatted with coconut oil. So you still aren't really getting that good of a product in the long
Yeah.
run. But even if you just added 50% shea to 50% coconut and then did a 50% super fat, you're looking at a whole different product because of the fatty acid profile. So for a vegan maker, they definitely have to really pay attention to their numbers a little bit tighter than a tallow maker will, just because they don't have as much freedom. They don't have as much freedom for the additives. They don't have the milk freedom, things like that. Lanolin's a big thing.
They
It
they
just
also
is.
can't
I
use
mean,
4 types of tallow, like a space.
they can't. Exactly, exactly. And that comes back to traditional soap making. I mean, if you're a farmer, you have all these animals. You may have donkeys, you may have like goats, you may have sheep, you may have cows. You have all these different animals on your land, and they don't waste
No.
things. So,
I mean that's kind of cool to look at it that way though. Like these things have been developed just through oh, let's see how this works. Let's see how this works.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I guess all of us as the artisans and the consumers are consistently benefiting from the R&D they did hundreds of years ago. Uh, it's funny because
Yeah.
when I look at it from my perspective now, let's say if I'm going out to buy soap, it's weird because I don't quite know if people are going to look at a vegan formula and say nope, don't want it because it's vegan. I know that probably happens. I don't personally do that.
It
I
does.
just find it strange. Like I'm definitely an advocate of if it's proven, then trust it. If it's not proven, then give it a go anyway. Because ultimately, to invest in new software, one isn't very expensive, and two, it's the case of discovering what works for you. Now, I've used from like the really really expensive stuff to the really cheap stuff, and honestly, the difference between the really cheap stuff and the really expensive stuff, there's a difference. I'm not going to deny there's a difference, but does the cheap stuff work? Yeah, yeah, it works. I mean, I wouldn't say it
Yeah.
has a luxurious post shave or you have like this fatty residual slickness layer on your skin in between passes or anything, but it works fine. So ultimately, for me, I don't think tallow and vegan is a good argument. I don't because you can buy anything you want. Ultimately, I think what it comes down to is preference and what you're willing to spend your money on. There are some people, as you
Absolutely.
said, that will be like, nope, it's a vegan soap, don't want it. I
Hmm.
would. I'm not going to call those people names because that's mean, but I will say you are missing out on a lot of stellar products if you look at the
Yes.
wet shaving space of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic tallow bases, and I would say that I think the the top tier tallow bases are probably marginally better than the top tier like vegan bases. But honestly, you're missing out on some fantastic soap makers when you look at those. And frankly, I think you're doing yourself as the consumer a disservice not trying them. I mean, what are your favorite vegan bases?
My favorite vegan base, besides my own, obviously, would definitely be Highland Springs. I just love their product. They have a fantastic
Yeah,
product. I have not tried Holy Cows vegan, and that is definitely one that is on my list to try. But Highland Springs just they kill it. They have very limited scents. They only have a handful of scents, but their product is just great. Southern Witchcraft is another one who is incredibly good. They have really unique scents, which is
I've
kind
never
of
used their
nice.
soap, and it's weird because I've not used their soap. Oh, because it's vegan. I've used it because That sounds like a pretty weird fucking scent. Like,
They definitely have a different take on scents, and they have what I would consider probably more earthy type
yeah,
scents. And that's kind of their thing, you know. They base it on a like a oh, I'm totally blanking out here. They base it on a theory, like a theme based on their soap that they're
yeah.
working on. And so they definitely pull their branding into it and work it around the branding. But they do have a lot of more earthy type scents, it seems like. But, some of
I'd
them
go
are
as
really good.
far as to calling them a bit danky. Uh,
Yeah, probably.
but honestly, like if you when I think of dark scents, I think of Ross McBee. You know who Ross is, right?
No.
Ross, West Coast Shaving
Oh, yeah,
Ross.
yeah, 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 from West Coast
He
Shaving.
is
Yes.
the dark scent aficionado. It's like if he smells citrus, he melts. Uh, to be honest, I'm surprised I've never heard of him using vegan bases. I mean, not vegan bases, but Southern West crafts because
Oh,
they'd be right up his alley. To be honest
yeah.
with you, but yeah, there's a lot of fantastic makers in both fields, but ultimately, it just comes down to don't limit yourself and try everything because I can guarantee you, as the consumer, if I was an artisan who made soap and I said this is a vegan base and it was actually a tallow base, you'd believe me. And the other way around, don't limit yourself like that because you're missing out on a lot of good products. And yeah, there's plenty of variety for everyone to choose from.
Yeah, okay, so I do want to expand on that. So I started testing my tallow probably around April or May, I think. And I had reached out to a handful of people that I knew my current product very well, people who I had a rapport with or who I was friends with. And I established, now they call themselves, we call them the council. They're a group of like 7 or 8 guys that I'm very good friends with, and I get a lot of really good, like just brutal feedback from them. They are pretty much no holds barred most of the time. When I told them the criteria was honest feedback, they took that to heart.
Yeah.
So, one of them, Eric Shaves, if you're familiar with him on
Yeah.
IG, he's one of my testers. He actually makes studies as part of the job he was in at the time, and he messaged me and he's like, you really are surveys, and he said you really need to do a survey. And I was like, I don't have time for a survey, I don't know anything about that. And he said, that's what I do, like I can totally make you a survey, and it will help me, like it'll save everybody time and it will help you follow things. And I was like, well, fine, if you're going to do them, go for it.
Yeah.
And thankfully he did, because I've learned so much. So I didn't tell any of my testers this, but I had my original vegan got a 85 score from Rudd's, and it just didn't sit with me. Like I am a little bit competitive, so I was just like, I can't be
You
happy
have
with
to
an
be.
85. Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah.
And mentally I was like, it's better than that, or I can do better than that. So I like had to prove myself to myself, I think. So what I was doing is I was sending them tallow samples, but I would throw in a vegan reformula that I was like trying to improve, and I wouldn't tell them. So it was
Yeah.
completely blind testing. So all of my testers would
That's
just
crafty.
be, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
crafty.
yeah.
I like that.
So all of my testers were labeled the same, 6, 7, 8, whatever. And what is interesting is that when they came to the vegan samples, none of them could say it was vegan, but almost every single one of them said, what is different about this sample? It is definitely different.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like the numbers don't lie. They totally were able to pull out which one was vegan. They couldn't say it
The
was
thing is,
vegan, but they
though,
could say it was different.
did they tell you any discernible characteristics that they thought they were different?
I would need to double check and look back on that. That was before I started with like the vegan lanolin and stuff. So I wasn't using lanolin or milks in either formula yet. So I don't recall anything specific without looking at my notes, but they all were able to tell there was a difference. And it wasn't like good or bad, but they all noticed a difference, which I found very interesting and at the same time very frustrating, because here I'm like, Tallow's not better.
Yeah,
But then I'm like, well, and it was the same thing. It's like it's all in their head. But then whenever they all were like, what is the difference in, I don't remember what it was, but like say tester six. And I'm like, what do you mean?
yeah.
So
That's really interesting. So I
yeah,
guess in a blind study, people can pick out this is different. I don't know how it's different, but it's not the
yeah,
same as this, this, or this. And I
yeah,
guess, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I don't predominantly own tallow soaps, but I'm not going to say they're objectively better because I think that's unfair. I would say they have characteristics that I would consider more desirable, as
mhm,
political as that may sound.
yeah,
Uh, but ultimately, I think if you can use whatever you use, then it probably gives you a good shave. That's all I'm going to say, and that's what I'll say consistently throughout discussions like this, because anything you get from pretty much any artisan nowadays in terms of performance, ignore scents because they are subjective. You're pretty much
right.
going to get a decent soap.
Yeah. And, there's a saying in this hobby for a reason.
Your mileage, yeah.
Yeah, your mileage may vary, and it's because it's true. We all have different, everybody has different skin types, everybody has different needs, everybody has different preferences. And some like want vegan because they are vegan, they have a vegan lifestyle and they want to carry that over in all their products. So they're not going to want to use a product that has lanolin and animal milks in it if they're vegan, obviously. So, not to mention the tallow. So, everybody does have different needs and requirements, but to say that there's absolutely no difference, I just can't anymore just because the numbers, you know, the blind surveys don't lie.
How has Zingari been impacted since you released the tallow formula?
Oh, it's definitely increased sales quite a bit. And I've had a lot. I have increased my sales. I have increased, I think, my customer base as far as like people who are familiar with me now. And yeah, I mean, like it's helped all around, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. And I was very hesitant to bring on tallow because I was happy with where I was until I got the score that I did, and then I was like, no, I can do better than this. I got to improve.
Didn't you get an updated score though from
I
the tribe, right?
I did, yes. Yes. So my
94?
original I did. So my
See, I
original
remember that.
vegan was an 85, and the blind testing tallow or vegan that I did ended up with a 94. So I was definitely kind of like, see, like because most vegans are lower base scores, and I was like, see, they can get a higher score. So I was like proving double points to myself.
Has like at that time that must have been the highest vegan base, right? I can't think of a vegan. There's Katie's Bubbles as well, but yeah,
Katie's
I'll.
Bubbles, I think, was the only one above me. So I was happy with that. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Um, I think there's a vegan there's a vegan base now that is rated 100, and that is Nye. I believe that might be vegan. I think it's vegan.
That
Actually,
the
no.
grooming department.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It might be vegan. It might be vegetal. I can't quite remember, but he gave that a pretty high score. I've used it myself, and it's very, very good. So I'm going to give you a question here. If you were to pick 3 tallow soaps to recommend to a beginner and 3 vegan soaps to recommend to a beginner, what would you recommend?
Vegan, I would recommend Highland Springs because ultimately they're hands down my favorite vegan. I would also recommend Southern Witchcraft because they're also very awesome. Um,
Unless you don't want to smell like death.
yeah, that's true. They do have a variety of scents though, and like I have like one of their fall ones. It's like a pumpkin tobacco, and it's really awesome.
That
If
sounds
you
pretty
like,
cool.
yeah, it's really good. Let's see. For the third one, hmm,
You
I
can't
don't.
say yourself. It's
I
cheating.
can't say myself. I know. So I'm trying to think of someone else. I'm trying to think of another vegan that I've used, and honestly, I'm not sure that I have another one that I've used that I love. But I haven't tried Holy Cows, and I haven't tried Grooming Department's vegan. For tallow, I would definitely. So my favorite, like one of my favorite tallows is definitely hands down Talbot.
Me too.
But I don't know that I would recommend them for a beginner for one reason. Like it's frustrating, I think, for a lot of people to try to get it.
Right, okay, so
So,
let me address that because I've seen that being spread around a lot. If you spend any amount of time in BSTs, Talbot comes up. But I know this from Chad himself. He is, especially with Winter's Refraction, his most recent release, he has upped the amount of numbers in general
yes.
production.
Yeah, he's
So,
definitely working towards that not being
yeah,
he's hoping to fix that. So,
it's not quite
yeah.
unobtainium anymore. Like, you can,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I have about 12 of his soaps.
Wow.
Uh, I love how his soap works.
Mhm.
So we've got Talbot. This is in no particular order, right? So you've got Talbot, but the difficulty in getting a hold of it might skew that a little bit. What's the other
Right.
ones you would pick?
A&E probably would be, my number one top choice for a beginner simply
Absolutely.
because he has a wide range of scents and, everybody's different on scents. And his soap is very easy to use. I mean, the problem with okay, like let's say all the new elite bases that are out, and this is including mine, they all have problems. They all have some kind of lathering technique that like is a little bit fickle,
Yeah.
or they don't hold as much water, or like mine, it will take,
Actually, I would argue. I think there's a couple. Actually, Kodiak. I've used that a few times, and that isn't difficult to use.
I have not used that one. That is one of them that I have, one of the new bases that I haven't used yet. But I'm going to say the majority of the new, what is
Are
considered
difficult to
elite
use.
bases,
I agree.
they're all fickle. They're all, they're not mindless to use for the most part.
Some can take too much water. Some can't take enough water.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you could throw a lake at mine and it'll still take it. So, yeah, I mean, they all have issues to some degree. A&E is just easy to use. It's a fantastic product. He has great scents. He has a big variety of scents, and he has fantastic. I would say Sterling probably is the third one because he has a great price point, and again, it's easy to use, and he has a huge range of scents to choose from.
I love the way Sterling soaps perform because I guess value. I don't think there's a better soap in existence than Sterling. You get, isn't it like 5.8, 6 ounces or something?
Yeah, I think so. Oh,
It's crazy.
another one is Noble Otter. I love Noble Otter soap, and he has fantastic scents.
He does, and I would say I'll get into mine in a minute, and there is a mention of Noble Otter in there. But
Hmm.
coming from Sterling, I don't own many of Sterling soaps because what I've noticed from Sterling is they have either kind of single scent notes or double scent note soaps, or they have cologne dupes. Neither of those really appeal to me. I have some of his stuff, like I have his Sandpiper dupe, which is a YSL dupe. I have Pharaoh's Dreamsicle, which I like quite a lot. But ultimately, the reason why it doesn't appeal to me is because I just don't think they have a very wide variety of scents, but that wide variety doesn't quite. They're not particularly my cup of tea. But if I was to recommend something to a beginner, I don't think you could not recommend Sterling based on value.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
for
And Ron
me,
is just awesome. I mean,
yeah,
like he's an awesome guy. It's a great company. He's been around forever, and there's a reason he's been around forever. And he's definitely someone I hope that we can talk to at some point because he has a great business model, longevity, and just his interaction with the community. He's not super social on social media, but he's just a great guy. So you can feel really good about supporting a
I
business like
think
that.
I think a company like Sterling has been around long enough to not have that crazy social media presence. Like
Absolutely.
I think his presence in the community is seen with those vibrant green tubs you see
Right.
everywhere, and
Yeah.
it does a job. If I was to pick my three vegan bases, they would probably be the same as yours. But as I'm not you, I would recommend yours. I would
Thank you.
recommend pretty much any vegan base grooming department makes. Although I think for beginners that could be construed as quite expensive.
Yeah.
And absolutely HSSC. I love HSSC. I have two of their soaps, and it's definitely top tier. Like if I was to use it next to a good tallow base, I I probably couldn't differentiate it too easily. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and they really don't get the exposure. They're not
no,
active on social media, but I don't know anyone who has used them who has been like, I wasn't really that impressed. Everybody I know that has used them absolutely loves them.
I'd go as far as to saying they have the best tobacco scent in existence.
Oh, the Viha.
That is Havana Vieja.
Yeah, yeah,
It
that's a
I,
really good scent.
it is so strong. I'll tell you a story, right? So I was fiddling with the aftershave like an idiot, and I dropped some of it on my hands. I smelt like tobacco and wonderfulness for a good 6 hours. And I tried to wash this scent out of my hands. The scent was like, no bitch, I ain't going anywhere. So that was very present. That yeah. So those are my three. HSSC, your base, and what was the other one I picked? Anything from grooming department, but
Yes.
of the caveat, it's probably quite expensive. My three tallow bases are Excelsior by Barrister and Mann. I think no one needs to know what Will does well. Everyone knows what Will does well, and that's everything.
Well, it's just
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and there's Noble Otter. Let's ignore Sago for now. Uh, although, to be honest, Sago is almost definitely one of my favorite bases. But if we're not looking at any of the elite tallow bases and moving them aside, to be honest, I call Excelsior one of the elite ones, but it wasn't in the pack of like the crazy reformulation saga that happened in the last few months.
Right,
It was just before.
right.
So when that came out, it blew everyone's minds. And then Milk Steak came out, and then Sierra came out, and then Kodiak was slightly before that, and then it started going mental. But yeah, so Barrister and Man, Excelsior. I would recommend Sterling as well. I love how Talbot shaving works. I think Talbot shaving has the performance of those elite bases with very little work. It's
Yeah.
so easy to use.
Yes, exactly. And I have three Talbot and I love the scents that I have. I haven't smelled all of his by any means, but I do love the ones that I currently have. And his performance is just amazing. And Chad's another artisan. See, this is the nice thing, I've talked to all these artisans on the
Yeah,
side. So I feel really good about supporting people I like and that I respect. And I have so many of them in this field. But Chad is definitely one of the top. He is just amazing.
I think
Uh,
that's another part of picking the soaps you buy as well, right?
yeah,
What brand speaks to me,
right.
and Talbot is definitely one of those that speak to me as well. So
Hmm.
those are the ones I recommend really. And in summary, what I think my argument against tallow versus vegan is shave with everything because everything is good. We are in a situation now where I don't think wet shaving has been in. There are so many artisans producing so many fantastic soaps that there's no reason to limit yourself like that. Yeah, you might be able to notice the difference between one to the milk steak you use every week, but frankly, don't limit yourself. They're all good.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many great artisans, and I'm the same
Absolutely.
way, like being on my side of it, because I don't consider myself a collector, at least not for soaps. I now brushes, that's a whole different thing. I'm definitely a brush hoe 100%. But I do, I love brushes. They're so pretty, and it's the easiest thing to use without affecting my shave, like, and making it bad.
Yeah.
So I love changing up my brushes, but I love supporting artisans that I'm friends with that have great products and that I know like put in the work to learn what they're doing. I just highly respect that. Scott from Declaration is one of, he's just all around an awesome artisan, but Cody from Noble Otter, Chad, there's so many, Chris from Katie's Bubbles. We have so many great artisans right now, and some of us are newer like me, and some have been around longer like Chris and Scott, from
Forever.
Declaration. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see everybody that puts in the work though to learn their craft and to provide for the community.
Yeah, and that is exactly what I will take away from that topic. Everyone does good stuff, other things might speak to you more than some things, but that's perfectly fine. It's your
Yep.
money and you spend it what you want on the end of the day. But my
Yep.
advice would be don't limit yourself because there's so many fantastic options out there for soap.
Yep.
Uh, the next topic, which I would say are
Moving
many,
along.
many less options for me personally. Something I have struggled with for a good year is finding aftershaves that I would consider to be skin nourishing. Now, I wouldn't say aftershaves are designed to be skin nourishing at all, for the most part. Uh,
Now,
you could
let's
say
clarify though. You're not talking about bombs. You're talking when you say
exactly
aftershave, you're talking
splashes.
splashes.
Yes,
Let's clarify that.
balms are supposed to be skin nourishing. If you're using a balm that isn't skin nourishing, open your nearest window and throw it out.
Yeah, get rid of that shit.
Yeah, it's not good. But so that brings me to the traditional the traditional aftershave splash versus the traditional or the Skinfood aftershave splash. Now, I would say the Skinfood aftershave splash off the bat, it's better, but we need to discuss it.
Yes.
Um,
Let's discuss why.
I've used a few vendors aftershaves. I use aftershaves after every shave unless I'm testing a new base, and then I won't. I have noticed a big trend in the last year of people using lots of botanic ingredients to improve the post-shave feel of an aftershave. Now, I think anything that is intended to use after the fact should be skin nourishing.
Hmm.
But I would go as far as to say not everything is created equal in that regard.
Right.
And if you look at something like I on top of the pedestal for me, and if you watch any of my YouTube content, some of you might. In my latest video, I'm going to kick some of you over to here, and hopefully some of you are here. Male grooming, Sean
Yes.
Mullen, he's top tier. Like I don't think there's an aftershave splash yet, and I'm looking at Heather
Yet.
that competes with him. Uh, there are some other fantastic ones. I would say Deltas by Barrister and Mann is outstanding as well. But and A&E's Skinfood aftershave is also very, very good. I would stop there for what I consider aftershaves where I don't need to think, do I need to use Zingari's balm with this? Do I need to? And
You always need to use the bomb. That's the answer.
yeah, but we don't let her pick on you guys. She does it to me all the time. Uh, ultimately, I think you can get away without using a balm to a degree. Wait. To a degree, if you're using one of those, you should always use a balm. Listen to
Should
her, she's
always.
mean.
Yes.
You should always use a balm, but ultimately, there are the other side of the spectrum where after some aftershaves, you fucking have to use a balm. Like
Right.
there's do not leave the bathroom after applying that without using a balm. And from the formulator's perspective, you've been working on an aftershave for some time now, right?
Yeah, I've kind of like stopped and picked it back up just because of like time. R&D definitely kind of falls to the side if I can't keep up with like orders and, production. So I have whenever I wrapped up Tallow, I kind of started it around that time and then I kind of had to drop it off a little bit and I'm trying to start it back up because I really want to get it wrapped up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say if I'm Joe from Texas and I'm interested in a Zingari product, right? I'm looking at your aftershave, but why should I use a balm after the aftershave like you recommend?
Okay, so they're definitely different products. And, I have tried, and with my testing, I've tried some different, I don't use splashes, guys. I shave like my underarms and my legs. I don't really use after, I don't need it, like I just
Yeah,
use a balm. But in like, I kind of need to know what's out there and what to like compare to and things like that. So I have this in my mind, and I have dry skin, so keep this in mind too. But the thought of putting alcohol on my face is just horrific to me because I have really
yeah,
dry, sensitive skin. I don't get it. Like, I know it's an astringent and I know the reason why it's in some of them, but I don't understand putting alcohol on my face. Like, I
but
just don't get
ultimately,
it.
like I wholeheartedly accept the argument that alcohol is an astringent, and it is, but surely there are better ingredients to use as astringents than alcohol.
There's so many more ingredients. So, for those of you who know me or are familiar with my brand, like um, treating your skin good and trying to provide better ingredients and skin food for you is what I am about. So for me, it is hard for me to wrap my head around a little bit. And I know some people are not going to give up their alcohol. Like,
No.
well, I mean, I'm not going to give up my alcohol either, let's face it. But I mean, like, as far as on your skin, that's a whole different subject. So, I know some people, especially those with oily skin, they want the alcohol because it dries their skin out, right?
Yeah, I have a skin like a Middle Eastern oil field, and I don't want alcohol. I don't want it. Don't give it
Well,
to me.
this is the thing. If you have oily skin and you apply a bunch of alcohol, especially after a drying soap or one who doesn't really have that great post-shave feel, then all you're doing is making your skin kick into overdrive to produce more oil and be like, hold up, wait a second, what just happened? We have to
That's a
fix
valid
this.
point. I never thought
Yeah,
about it like that.
yeah, so that's what happens. So you're not really balancing it. You're just like you're stripping it and then you make your skin react to that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a cycle. That's what you end up going into. And so if you bring that down just a little bit to slightly more mild, like cleansing and like stripping, then you don't have your skin going into hyperdrive. So alcohol splashes for me don't make a lot of sense. It's what a lot of the customers want, but I prefer to provide like nutrients and things to help the skin along after a shave or anytime. Like, really, it's not just after a shave, but you need to give back to your skin, guys. It's like you're going to have your skin for the rest of your life. You need to treat it good.
I think a lot of people are like I don't think people care so much about the perceived benefits of alcohol more than it is I like the fact that it burns.
No, why? Who the
I
hell wants their skin to burn? I don't
so
even get that. I can't even wrap my head around that.
no,
Why do you want your face to burn? It doesn't make any sense to me.
for anyone that watches my videos, you can tell if I like a splash or not because I go, nope, this isn't for me. And it's more often than not splashes with really high alcohol contents or splashes that have fucking alum in them. But I'm not going to get into that. But splashes that just have things that aren't ultimately good for your skin.
Right.
My, I mean, listen to Heather because she knows way more than me about this. But if you're going to use an alcohol splash, just use a balm, please. Just use a balm because you're going to be wearing your skin for about 80 years, hopefully.
Right.
And
Exactly.
if you're going to be wearing that same face for 80 years, it's probably a good idea to start treating it nicely sooner
Treat her
rather than
nice.
later.
Yeah, I treat her nice.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would say. What would you say? Like, if I was to, what are you looking for in your aftershave? So when you release your aftershave, what what are the few things it has to do?
Okay, so there are an aftershave or a balm. It's like the perfect opportunity to be able to use so many amazing ingredients.
Yeah,
And so there's so many opportunities, especially in a splash. A balm, you're a little bit more limited. A serum, you're even more limited in. But a splash, you have so many opportunities to pack it full of nutrients. And this is what I think. Like, why use straight alcohol and fragrance on your face when you can use a perfume or a cologne, I
yeah.
guess.
Like
Sorry.
I've never quite understood the
Yeah.
concept of I use this because it lasts a long time. Go to
Yeah.
Sephora and buy cologne.
Yeah, I think aftershaves are cheaper, obviously, than buying a cologne, and I get that. But it's an aftershave. It's not a cologne. They're two different purposes, and there's a reason. You don't want all that fragrance, super strong fragrance on your face
No.
after a shave. It definitely is going to give you a higher chance of irritation.
Even
And
some people struggle
you know,
with lots of fragrance during a shave, which is why
exactly.
a lot of the skin conscious artisans will have like a mid scent strength soap. That's not because they're stingy with scents. That's because they care about your face.
Yes, exactly. And that's totally me. Like,
Yeah.
people, the one complaint I get is like, your scents aren't strong. Well, they're never going to be. I'm sorry. That's
Explorer
just
is pretty
not.
strong. It might just be
Explorer
what you use though.
is. Yeah, Explorer for me probably is one of the stronger ones. And I have kicked my scents up a little bit, but fragrance is one of like, it's just notorious. If
Yeah.
people are so reactive to some of the things in fragrance that, and you're shaving your face, like you're irritating your skin no matter what.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
to put on a super strong scent during or after the shave for me just does not make sense. But so with splashes, this is the thing. You have so much of an opportunity to get skin food in there, and there are some brands who do this fantastically. So you can do, alcohol. You can do high alcohol, which, or you can do lower alcohol, which is going to give you a little bit of the astringent, but you're not going to have to like do this overcompensation of like the effects of the alcohol on your
Yeah.
skin with like a whole lot of heavy oils and things like that. So lower alcohol, I think is maybe acceptable. This is me. This is just obviously my opinions. But you have a chance, no matter what kind of a base you use, to use a lot of additives. So there are vitamins, there are extracts, there are botanicals, there's fruit extracts, there's conditioners, there's moisturizers. This is the perfect time to experiment and throw in a lot of these things. With extracts, we have botanicals, we have fruits, we have vitamins. These are going to help do different things. Some of them are going to help, reduce inflammation. We can't claim that. I can tell you that now because I'm not making a claim on a product. But technically, by the FDA law, I cannot tell you it's going to be anti-inflammatory or reduce inflammation, things like that. But I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of these things that do. So you
Fuck you,
can get,
FDA.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm not making any claim on any specific product, especially mine right now. I'm just throwing this out there. So, there's a lot of botanicals that will help, like, kind of calm and soothe and help with like inflammation. There's a lot of them that are antifungal, antibacterial. There are several fruit extracts that you can get into that are going to help, like, cell proliferation, cell turnover. And what that means is it's going to help your skin heal and recover faster because it's going to promote cell like renewal, basically. So, with shaving, you're kind of like removing a layer of skin. And if
Yeah.
you add something back onto your skin that's going to help with cell renewal, it's going to like help kind of restore that outer surface, basically. This is perfect time for all of these things. Humectants are things that are going to either add water to your skin or they're going to draw moisture to your skin from the atmosphere and the humidity. The A basic example of that is going to be glycerin. Glycerin's in everything. All
It
like,
is, yeah.
yeah, it's in everything. There's a reason. It's affordable. It's now vegetable based. It used to be a petroleum byproduct. I don't know if many people know that, but
Oh.
you'll see things listed specifically now as vegetable glycerin, and that's
Yeah.
because it used to be a petroleum
Oh.
byproduct. So,
Okay. I didn't
yeah,
know that.
that's one of the reasons why. Glycerin is water soluble, so it doesn't really matter what you're putting it into unless it's an anhydrous space. It is going to kind of break down. The one problem with glycerin is if you use too much, it's going to give you like that a tacky feel kind of on
Yeah,
your
I
skin.
really, really hate that, and I've noticed some aftershaves do that more than others.
Mhm.
It's for
Yeah.
me what I look for in a post shave product, even a balm or an aftershave, whatever. I look for quick absorption and a good post shave feel. Like it's difficult because some people will argue that I think a lot of alcohol splashes will give you a good post shave feel. Yeah, but then I would say use something that's actually good for your skin, and
Right.
you'll see a remarkable difference in terms of the feel there.
Yes.
If I was to recommend kind of like a post shave routine, honestly, to be honest, I'm a massive hypocrite because you probably shouldn't be using aftershaves anyway. But if you insist on using your aftershave, use an aftershave, and then as soon as you've used the aftershave, reach inside your medicine cabinet and grab Zingari balm, also known as the best balm, by the way.
The
Uh,
best bum.
the best balm, or Parasso. Use whatever you want to use, as long as it doesn't contain alcohol and it's good for your skin. Go to town.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't. It's funny because I have oily skin, and I noticed with some balms, my skin will feel like I have rubbed baby oil on my face for a
Yeah.
while because they absorb really slowly, and
Hmm.
I don't think that does my skin any favors. But the reason I like your balm so much, even Sago, which is very heavy,
Hmm.
it absorbs very quickly. But what it does
Yeah.
is it's like if I was to kind of like imagine what it's doing, it's absorbing, but it's leaving that layer on your
Right.
skin. And that
Yes.
layer, I think, is imperative when it comes to an aftershave product because, frankly, what you've just done is you've dragged a sharp edge across your face
Right.
and it's then left exposed and letting the elements get to it.
Hmm.
Using a good post shave will allow your skin to say, I'm protecting myself for a while whilst I regenerate. And it's just a
Right.
generally good habit to be in.
Exactly. And using a brush on your face is great because it's mild, but it helps with like exfoliation. It helps kind of lift those hairs, things like that. So, but for people like, okay, so don't laugh at me. Well, I know you guys are going to anyway, but so one thing that I have done many times, because of testing is I have actually face lathered several times. And I can actually kick ass face lathering, just so you know. But I have such sensitive skin that even face lathering, I can do it once and I'm fine. If I do it twice in a row, my face gets irritated.
Even like, so I've noticed some guys that have incredibly sensitive skin. Uh, the person that comes to mind when I think of sensitive skin is Chris Madden, another cut above. He, I've seen him react to all types of fragrances. I've seen him react to just loads and loads of things that most people probably wouldn't react to. But he can, you know, he lathers for a long time, like a pretty damn long time, which is the way to go, in my opinion. But it's kind of interesting, like, but so you lather once and then you clear it again, and once you do it again, is that when you get irritated?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily notice it then, but when I rinse it off, I notice I'll start having like red patches
Shit.
on my skin. And that's not even shaving, that's literally just lathering. And maybe if I did it more consistently, like you guys are, maybe it wouldn't bother me so much. But I definitely have noticed that. And people who have followed me for a while, if they saw it on my Instagram about a year ago, I did a live face lather with Jason at Distorted Edge. And so I did this like short educational like series, and I still do it occasionally, but I was like, teach me these things. Like I want to learn. And so I did a face lather, and I was like, I want to be able to make sure that I'm helping people the correct way. So Jason at Distorted Edge, I don't know if you've ever watched any of his YouTube videos.
I know of him, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, but I will tell you what, he is like hands down the best face lather I have ever seen. He's methodical. He like hits all my OCD spots whenever I'm like, you're not getting it consistently. He wipes his lips. He's got all these things down that I like. So I had him teach me. I had him bring me on and teach me. And so I did this live the first time for that. But whenever I do testing, I'll do hand lathers. Obviously I use it on my legs. I'll even do an arm lather. I've shaved my arms. I can't tell you how many times during testing because eventually I can't shave my legs anymore. And I finally just moved back to my face and I'm like, well, I got to try it. But yeah, I definitely have had a lot of irritation on my face before from just doing two lathers, not even a shave.
So, like, if you relate that to using a splash afterwards,
Mm-mm. No way. It's just what I don't get, and it's definitely about skin type is the biggest thing. You won't
yeah.
see people that have dry skin be crazy about splashes, and you definitely won't see them be crazy about high alcohol splashes. They're going to be the balm users, you
So,
know.
what splashes would you recommend?
I haven't used a lot. I have used some. Hands down, I'm with you. My favorite is Mal. Like Sean kills
Yeah.
it on it. And, between you and I and everybody who's listening to this podcast,
Yeah.
evidently, um, whenever I started my testing, I was like, I went to my group of testers and I'm like, hey, who are you guys think is like in the best? And, I got my list and I was like, okay, so send me some samples. So I got Mal, and he's literally probably the only one that I would use after a shave. I don't use splash, I just use balms, but he definitely has a great feel on his splashes. I just love them. I have not personally used them, but I hear Oaken is also amazing, but
Yeah.
they're alcohol free.
Now, that brings me to the fact that I believe every aftershave should be alcohol free.
That's
I
kind of
do.
my feeling, and that's what I'm working towards.
Because if you,
Yeah.
like, as the formulator, is there any advantage to having alcohol in it whatsoever? Honestly,
The only advantage, okay, so as a formulator side, not even skin, there is one big benefit to having alcohol
what's
is if
that?
you put in a minimum percentage, let's say 20%, I think it's 25%, it is self-preservation. You don't have to worry about adding a preservative to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the alcohol, it's going to help, fight off like the antimicrobials, whether it's a fungus or a bacteria.
Now, do you think a lot of the companies that are making these skin food splashes are doing that for that purpose?
I don't know. I can tell you in my testing of the alcohol splashes that I have tested, I have used the minimum to make them self-preserving, and that's it. And you can go, there's a range. I mean, you could do up to like 90, 95% alcohol and just add some fragrance and send it. But I have literally used, yeah, yeah, you can
Ah,
just picture it. It just doesn't even feel good to imagine what that's going to be like on your skin. You might as well grab the as a propofol bottle, and get the
yeah.
cotton ball out and
Or,
just,
get the
you know,
bourbon and pour that on my
exactly,
face.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the one benefit on the maker side of it. And alcohol is also not cheap. I mean, it's
No.
expensive for us to buy, and it's expensive for us to ship. So, that is definitely a disadvantage to it. Also, the scent. It has a scent to it. If you
Yeah.
use a high alcohol content, then you also have to be able to offset that with the fragrance or something because you're going to smell it.
I'll have to get a hold of one of the Oaken Lab splashes because I've never used them before. I've used the when I think of an alcohol-free splash, the one that comes into my head is Tallow and Steel,
Mm.
and that is outstandingly good.
I don't think
But
I've used that one. I don't think I have any of that one to try either. I have used A&E. Their splash seems pretty good.
if you're coming to Big Shave, I can give you a little vial of it or something. But
Okay.
I would say it's the way I would describe it is: have you ever seen any of the HSSC splashes?
No, and I have not used any of them either.
Okay, they have too much alcohol for me. But when it comes to the Tallow and Steel splash, it's like a milky consistency.
Uh-huh.
Like the way I would describe it is like a watered down milk. It
Okay.
has a very good kind of like immediate application face fill.
Uh-huh.
It can be a bit tacky, but it kind of wanes quite quickly. It's a very good splash, but I think kind of going on to that, I think most splashes, if you're going to use a splash, probably just use an alcohol-free splash, and I don't think there's enough of them. Honestly, there's a few, but
Yeah.
then I can name you loads of splashes that contain too much alcohol, and not many splashes that don't contain any alcohol at all. It's quite disappointing for me.
Yeah, and I think that because I don't carry splashes now, it's definitely something I'm working on. But what I've noticed is I think that brands who do have high alcohol content are kind of shifting that a little
Yeah,
bit. Have you noticed
I
that?
have, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're catching on. And I think they're catching on because, there's a lot of people who are bomb haters. And when I first started and I only had a bomb, people are like, well, where's your splash at? And I'm like, well, I don't have one. I just have a bomb. And I finally got people to try it, and then they saw that, not all balms have to be heavy and sit on your face. Some of them
Do you
can like
think do
absorb
you think that's
quickly.
why a lot of people don't like balms?
It is. That's all the feedback. Every time I get a feedback from somebody who's a bomb basher, like one of my other testers is JR, and I'm totally calling him out right now because because JR was like notorious for being a bomb basher. He just wanted splashes, and I totally converted him. And he saw that you can have a balm that absorbs quickly without like sitting on your face. And he has oily skin,
Yeah.
which is why I think he's a balm basher.
Again,
And what's even
I
funny
have oily
is he
skin,
can use,
and I
yeah,
think
and
balms, very specific balms, I think are very, very good.
right. Yeah. And there's a lot of things in a balm that I feel like should be avoided, and that's all dependent on your skin type. But like silicones, I try to avoid silicones on my face, especially dimethicone, because it's heavy. And of all the silicones, it's tend to be one of them that really causes the most like pore issues. So it's a higher chance of causing breakouts and flare ups, especially if you already have oily skin. So I do prefer to avoid the silicones. And so you don't really find them in my balms, but they're great for emolliency and kind of occluding off the face a little
Here's the
bit.
question then. So let's say, to wrap this topic up, if I was to say, okay, so I'm looking to buy an aftershave splash, I have dry skin, what ingredients should I stay away from?
Stay away
Yeah.
from definitely the alcohol, most likely alum. That's going to be dependent. I feel like alum is one of those things that like you can use to spot treat, but I don't
No,
really
I
understand the
don't know why
point
you'd
of
put it
putting
all
it
over your
all
face. It
over.
just what I find
Yeah.
alum does, and I'm talking about block form. When I first started this, I used to use alum after every shave, and what I noticed, it was destroying all the benefits the soap had built up throughout the shave,
Right.
and I just think it's counterintuitive, frankly.
Yeah, use it if you're
Yeah,
bleeding.
use it there. And I remember I was using a straight razor a few months ago, and I fucking chopped my face open, and alum was fantastic for that. But
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you don't need to put it all over your face after every shave. More often than not, if you've been shaving for a while, you're not going to need that level of like ability to. I guess the way I would put it is like you don't need that astringent anymore
Right.
because you're using the right amount of pressure when you're shaving, etc. So alum, alcohol, anything else? What about aloe? I
Those,
noticed loads and loads of splashes have aloe in them, and I've heard mixed opinions as to why people would have aloe in them.
yeah. Um, I have very mixed emotions about aloe because there's two ways to look at it. I feel like it's grossly
Yeah, it
overused,
is.
but it's also grossly contaminated on the ingredient supply list, supply side. Aloe is one of the most contaminated ingredients, aloes and clays. And I just don't feel like, and it's a film former. So if you ever notice when you use something that has aloe really high on the ingredient list, sometimes it leaves your face feeling weird
Yeah.
or like tacky. It's because it's a film former. So it's literally, and those are good, but there's a balance with them. And I feel like aloe is just, for me, it's just not what I love, and I feel like it's just
Okay,
overused.
so I understand. So, would you stay away from aloe?
You don't necessarily have to stay away from it. I don't know that it's as important as people seem to make it to be, but you definitely want to look for some humectants, whether it's glycerin, propylene glycol. You also have hyaluronic acid. I don't know that I've seen that in any splashes per se, but it's
Yeah.
a fantastic humectant. I know there is someone who uses it in their soap. Grooming department uses it in their soap. I'm
He
not
uses
really sure if
everything.
you're getting. He uses everything, yeah. Um, Definitely you want to look for some extracts, any kind of extract, botanical extracts, fruit extracts that you can get in there. If you can get some like panthenol, allantoin's going to help the skin recover. Those are always fantastic ingredients. And there's a ton of them, but those are things I would look
Okay,
for.
and ultimately, I think the main takeaway of this is use your splash if you insist, but use a balm afterwards, right?
Yes, and an important note to that and a pro tip here is you want to use products in order of weight. So if you want to use a splash because you want the alcohol, or you think you need to dry your skin out because you have oily skin, or you want the scent, whatever it may be, you want to apply the splash first after your
Yeah.
shave, and then you want to apply the balm. That's one big thing. But you also don't want to wait to apply your balm. I've heard some people say they wait after the splash is soaked in before they apply their balm. Don't do that. Apply it immediately, and it's going to help seal that moisture in. You just added a bunch of water and stuff to your
Yeah.
face for the shave. You don't want to let that dry out and your skin lose that. We do have what's called transepidermal water loss, and in skincare, that is like one of the biggest things that we try to combat. So the quicker you can get something on to kind of seal that moisture into your face, the better off you're going to be. And if your splash doesn't have an oil or something in it to help with that, the balm is your answer.
Okay, that's I can't really add anything onto that. You added that very well. So this is where we would do your wildcard topic. Like I said, kind of at the start of the episode, recommend any wet shaving topic you like. If we like the look of it, we're going to pick it, and we're going to give you credit for it. For the next episode, episode 2, we are working on our guest being good old Michael Friedberg. For anyone that doesn't know Michael Friedberg, I'd highly recommend you check him out. For me, he's definitely one of the best wet shaving reviewers. Kind of like a more long form reviewer. He uses something for a considerable length of time and then gives his opinions on it at the end of the week. Unique, I guess, unique approach. Very intelligent man, very funny man, and we're looking forward to having him on and discussing some stuff with him. Kind of like,
Yeah, Michael's
yeah, he
funny.
is.
I'm so excited to talk to him.
So if we're gonna wrap this up, then what are Zingari doing at the moment? Is there anything new? Is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah, absolutely. We just released our rescue potion, which is our version of a serum. It's a 2 ounce bottle. It's in our, classic frosted white glass bottle like our balm comes in. It's kind of like a little mini balm bottle. It has a pump to it. It's $26 for 2 ounces. That is going to be used anytime you need to boost a crappy aftershave, one of those high alcohol alum based
Could you use that on its own?
aftershaves. You can totally use it on its own. If you're going to do that, depending on what products you use, you can do the shave, rinse, and immediately use just the serum. That's absolutely fine. And what it's going to do is kind of help retain in that moisture that you just added in. Also has a bunch of extracts. It's going to help soothe, brighten, and kind of moisturize your skin. Um, you can add it to your balm if you feel like you want to get like a little bit of a heavier balm if your skin's a little bit more dry due to seasonal changes, or you used maybe a really drying soap, then you can use that to kind of help with that. Or if you have a splash and instead of using a balm after, you kind of want to just boost the performance of the splash, you can add a pump of the rescue potion in with your splash in your hand and apply it all at
That's a good
once.
idea. I don't think there are many products around like that now, so
Right.
that's cool. Anything else? Anything else you want to
Yeah.
plug?
And it's unscented.
That's good.
It's
And when
unscented.
Heather says
Yeah.
stuff is unscented, it actually is unscented. It doesn't smell of any form
Yeah.
of base. Uh,
Yeah. The base is very light. It's very neutral. You're not going to notice anything like weird or funky. If you're on Reddit, I do have a Reddit sub exclusive that is up for pre-sale right now, and that is the blacksmith. That is available on my website until the 28th of February, and then I will be shipping those out. I do have 2 new scents that will be coming out soon, and I will give you more information on those on the next podcast.
okay. Some updates for Carve. We are currently in the process of sourcing new anodizers for our aluminum razors. Anyone that knows about the aluminum razors, we know we've struggled with. We haven't struggled with quality issues. They have struggled with quality issues that directly impact us, and we don't want to deal with that. So we're looking for that. We have a lot of things coming within the next month. We'd also like to confirm attendance for Big Shave Southwest
Oh, me too.
and Magard Meetup in Michigan in May. So yeah,
Yes, I'm super excited about this.
they're going to be fantastic events. If you're located anywhere in America, you might be able to get to one of them, depending on whether you're in the south or the north,
Hmm.
east or west. Try and get to one of them. It's a fantastic opportunity to kind of meet people within the industry, and I think it's fantastic. But apart from that, I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. We look, I personally, and I can speak for Heather here as well, hope this episode goes down well. Any feedback any of you have, please leave it in the YouTube comments, send us private messages, do whatever you want to do. Yeah, I
Hmm.
hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you next time.
Yes, thank you for joining.
See you guys.